Recording. Once again, welcome to the Unconquered Fam podcast. I'm your host, Malik Mayweather. This is the podcast where the premise is positivity, the source is love, and the outcome is hopefully peace, whatever that means to you. Today, we're talking about habits. So, everybody has good and bad habits. Um, some people have bad habits they think are good. Some people have good habits they think are bad. So, that's all up to you as far as your interpretation and how you want to live your life and what habits you put into practice are your choice. But I do want to talk to you about them and what I think is some of the characteristics of habits and how you can keep more of your life and your habits under control as you go throughout life. So, like I said, habits are something you can control. Habits make us who we are. They lead up to the decisions we make. They have a large influence on the outcome of certain goals that we set out to achieve, and they can make life easier or harder depending on how you look at them. So, you say, Malik, why are we talking about habits? I say to you, why not? All I ever hear is control what you can control, or don't worry about anything but what you can do in certain situations, or nothing changes unless you do. So why not change your habits? And not only change, but learn how to change them in a way that gets you all the things that you want. If you're big and you want to lose weight, you change your eating habits and exercise habits. If you want to be better at math, you change your study habits. If you want to be happier throughout your day, you change your thinking habits or possibly your working habits. It's not all habits alone, but they have a big part of what allows us to be who we are. And you know, you got to think about it this way: athletes aren't good at their sport by accident. You know, athletes are people that put in so much time at being precise and practicing different techniques and different things to put them in a position to where their habits take over and they don't have to think as much. So habits are something that you have to work on, but once they're there, and they can always get either further ingrained, or they can be you know they never leave your brain. Let's get that out there in the open. Habits never leave. There are just some habits that are more strong, are stronger than others in certain instances. But to get into it in a positive light, let's look at it this way. Information is out there. Consume wisely, but consume nonetheless. Because habits can help you keep growing. This is something that I just started reading about in The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. This is the book for anybody that might want to purchase it. It might be able to help you out. But this is something I just recently started reading about in The Power of Habit, and it's called The Habit Loop. And there's plenty of research that's going on about this, and how to understand how your brain understands habits. And if you want to dive deeper, it's out there for you to do so. Or if you just want to understand in layman's terms, you can do that too. So I'm going to try to put this in perspective for you. Think about it as this: holding a door for somebody was a habit that you developed. Um, when you're little, you might have developed this habit by somebody telling you to hold the door for somebody. All right, so that's the first way you could have developed this habit. Now, as you get older, there's a trigger, there's a routine, and then there's a reward. When you're little, you held the door open. Somebody praised you. They said thank you. They said, "Oh, thank you. Look at this gentleman," or something, or this you're so polite, or something. As you get older, that reward might not be the same, but the trigger or the cue, so to speak, is the same. So when you're walking up to a door, you see somebody behind you, and now you're more apt to holding that door for somebody because you've gotten into the habit of holding doors for people. The reward may only be a simple thank you, but the habit of holding the door for somebody was developed, and now it's almost automatic. You don't think about it. Your brain doesn't really register or go into this mode of where it's going through all these different processes to say, okay, I need to hold the door for this person, or I need to open it at this moment, or whatever. You just do it. You don't think about it. And that's what habits are, in a sense. Things that you develop and you don't really have to think about as much. Now, in terms of changing your habits, the big key is consciousness. Habits are something that you can be totally aware of. It's simple as actively paying attention. The first step to changing them is understanding. For example, every time you get angry, if you eat a huge amount of candy, that's not a good habit. But by being conscious of this habit, you start to exercise the mind in the areas that would enable you to gain more control over that habit. It's similar to, when people say the first step to recovery is admitting you have a problem. It's the same thing. Exercising your brain isn't the same as exercising other physical parts of your body. Just being consciously aware of something exercises the parts of your brain that help you become more aware of habits and be able to gain control over bad habits and good habits, because your brain doesn't know what a good or a bad habit is. All it knows is the habit loop. And now you can start to identify these triggers that bring out the bad habit. And it's better, in my opinion, not to avoid the triggers altogether, but to, I guess, in a way, figure out a new way to respond to that trigger, to develop a new habit to that trigger. Because habits never die, but if you develop a new response to the thing that was triggering the bad habit, now you can turn that bad habit into a good habit. So now when you're angry, instead of eating candy, you eat fruit. And when you eat fruit, you have more energy. And when you have more energy, you work out. You work out more. And when you work out more, you're healthier. You're healthier, you have more energy throughout the day to be more useful in whatever it is you do. And all of that goes into my next point, which is good habits compound. And now that you've started to compound these good habits, you now start to have a lot better outcomes in life, because like I said, habits are the results of the decisions we make are because of different habits we have. And like I said, it's not habits all alone, but they are a result nonetheless. So now I want to go into how to attack habits with love. The way I see this is you have to love yourself enough to be self-disciplined and set parameters. Knowing that your brain doesn't know what a good and a bad habit is, and that it simply understands the habit loop, allows you to put parameters on your habits. For example, if you know you want to go to sleep by a certain time every night, and you're an avid reader, and reading is good for you, but sometimes you get caught up in your book and you don't go to sleep at the time you need to go to sleep at, and now it flows into the next day, and you're not as productive or not your best self the next day. Although reading is good for you, you learn that if this happens too many days in a row, you're worse off in your daily routines until you get back into the habit of doing the things that kept you in routine. And I'm not saying routine is always the best thing, because sometimes you have to switch it up, but too much of a good habit can still affect you if it causes a bad habit to develop. So you have to be cognizant of those things that can happen. Like I said, it can be something as simple as reading. Now you've been up late for 2 or 3 days and you feel like you're just sluggish and you can't get back into your own, your groove that you were in prior to that. And, because they are ingrained, it's not hard to fall back into them. So like I said, be cognizant of those things, because 5 or 6 days in a row can really start to mess up just, the way you move throughout your day. Not necessarily your life, but the way you move throughout your day. As far as peace, I think something that I think everybody can benefit from, and it's kind of something that I have to admit that I thought was dumb, because it's crazy to hear me speak about it, but mindfulness meditation. The first time I was introduced to it was my freshman year in Miami, and they used to make us do it at the end of workouts and practice. And, it sucked because I was too tired to really concentrate and people would be half asleep. But now I understand the power, those sessions can really have. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you to just sit around and meditate all the time. But I do know that another component to, this is prayer. And I pray a lot. And there are components to that, there's a component to prayer that's unstoppable, in my opinion, and that's God. So I try to be specific in prayer, so that He can show me how to step in the right direction He wants me to go, and I try to be aware of myself in meditation because, the Word says that I'm complete, lacking nothing, and those two combined, I think, are what we all need to be able to move forward in the direction that God wants us to go, while getting the most out of it at the same time, because we're our best selves in these God-given situations, because we've been specific, we've been ready for it, but now we're ready, even beyond that, at being our best self. And now we really start to understand how to move throughout life as ourselves, because we understand our habits, we understand how to be mindful of our habits and how they lead to this action or that action. And we got to understand that humans are habitual creatures. It's not as simple as, oh, I'm just going to stop doing this or I'm going to stop doing that. And depending on the habit, maybe it could be, but more than likely there's going to be something that changes in your habits, in your actions, that allow you to be able to stop doing whatever it is you said you're going to stop doing, or continue doing whatever it is you say you're going to continue doing. And I think that being aware of it is a lot of it. A lot of people aren't aware. You see that they say the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. That ain't nothing but people picking up habits of other people. And then when they say the apple did fall way far from the tree and people are totally different, then you have to look at the situations they were put in and the habits they may pick up. Accent is a habit. You're not born with an accent. You pick up on words, you pick up on how to say different things in a certain way. It's just you're around certain people. When I come back to Memphis, when I used to come back to Memphis and then go back to Miami, they would say, "Oh, you came back country." But when I'm in Miami, I come back to Memphis, they said, "Oh, you kind of sound like you talking like you from Miami." So you can see how it's something you don't even notice. And another thing I read about in this book that I want to just reiterate, if you want to buy it, I think it's a good read for anybody who wants to get this book. They talk about a study in here about an old man named Eugene, and he has this brain injury that he's had from I don't even remember the accident at the moment, but he has this brain injury. And from the brain injury, it eats at the part of the brain that is responsible for memories and recalling certain information and situations. And they noticed that, oh, this must mean that he's not going to be able to move around and walk around or remember what a bathroom is even at. So the study started to go forward, and they said, okay, do you know where the bathroom is, while he was at home? And he was like, I'm not sure. Then they asked him, if you have to use the restroom, what would you do? Show me what you would do. And then he gets up and he walks to the bathroom. So you can form habits without even knowing it. Another example is this same guy. They say he doesn't need to be alone or be outside by himself. He'll get lost, or he might walk out into traffic, this old man. And then the wife lost track of him one day. He walks outside. She goes running looking for him. And when she gets back after not being able to find him, he's inside. And they're wondering, how did he get back inside? How did he know his way around? And they start to do these different experiments, and they come to the conclusion that, the part of the brain that is responsible for habits is so powerful that you just build these connections and you build these habits not even knowing it. That's why, somebody might have a tendency to be loud if they're growing up around a lot of loud people, and they're I have a tendency to be very encouraging. I played a lot of team sports growing up. I went to, a great church, had a great family who always encouraged me. So it just shows I have a habit to encourage people. Now I'm also a realist, and I think I get that from my father. You just look at the facts and you understand the facts wholeheartedly as well. So I think I got a pretty good balance, thank God. But it just shows how habits can be lurking in a lot of different things, and a lot of what we feel or do or blame that we placed on certain situations are really things that we can start to control, and it starts with our habits, so that's my spiel for today on the Unconquered Fam podcast. It's something that's actually really interesting to me. I'm actually thinking about changing my interest as far as grad school because of this one topic. So you never know what happens. Get a book, read a book, and you never know what it might show you or what you can get from it. So that's my spiel today. I appreciate everybody listening. I appreciate everybody that's going to listen after the fact. Every podcast from this point on will be on the Unconquered Fam podcast page. So if you haven't followed it on Instagram, follow it. Follow on SoundCloud, YouTube, everything at Unconquered Fam. This is the last one that will be on this Instagram account. I still will put it on my personal Facebook if you follow me on Facebook or whatnot. But every other broadcast as far as Instagram Live will be on the Unconquered Fam podcast page. So go follow that page now. I appreciate the support. And we'll talk to you later. I'm out.